After you have a baby, suddenly everyone has opinions, advice, drop-by visits, and zero respect for nap schedules.
So setting boundaries isn't about being rude. It's actually about protecting your sanity, your baby's needs, and your family's routine. And it's really, really hard sometimes. Not sometimes, honestly, all the time. It's hard, especially when you're just exhausted, sleep deprived, and just needing to survive.
So today we're here sharing our real life stories, the wins, the fails, and the tears. And we're going to give you practical ways to set boundaries without setting your whole family group chat on fire.
Welcome back to The Hardest Job Ever, the podcast where we talk about the messy, beautiful, and hilarious, and sometimes awkward side of new motherhood. And we're your hosts, Purvi and Karen. Today, we're talking about a topic that every new mom will eventually run into, which is boundaries, especially with friends, family, and yes, primarily your grandparents too.
Shout out to our listener, Rachel, who reached out and asked us about this topic. I thought this was a fantastic one. Purvi and I were really excited to chat about it. All right, so let's jump right in. Why do boundaries feel so much harder after becoming a mom? I feel like before I was a mom, I was really good at telling my friends, hey, this is when I'm available. This is when I can't do something. Same thing with my family. But suddenly, when I'm a mom, now I'm like, oh my God, I feel so guilty all the time when I say that I don't want their help or they can't come. And I think it's because everyone loves us. They care about us. They want to help. But the thing is, they do it in the way that they think it's best. And it's oftentimes not what I need. And so I don't know how to say no. I have no idea, right? Or I don't know how to compromise properly without offending them. And I think that's why it's become so hard. And then separately, I think another really big thing, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this all too, Purvi, because I'm really type A. This is different than what you are. And for me, it's like I want to, and I think I can do everything on my own. So I really struggle to actually ask for help. And I don't even know how to really voice my needs sometimes. And so with that, like sort of desire for independence, I remember at the beginning of postpartum, my hormones were raging. I was exhausted. I just did not want anyone around me. I did not want help. And I didn't know how to even ask my own husband for help. So it was just really challenging for me when it came to creating boundaries, creating space for that support.
I totally agree with that. I definitely struggled with that too. Even as my type B personality is, I still love my independence. I also really struggled with asking for help, especially in those early postpartum days when I was trying to figure out how to, manage the twins with my in-laws, with Dhruv there, and also with my mom there the first 2 months, right? So it was definitely hard, but I also feel like the South Asian twist added a whole nother layer of complexity to boundary setting, right? Like South Asian moms, like my mom and my middle, they have strong opinions on how to raise a baby, right? And in South Asian culture, it's very, very common saying like, you never wake a sleeping baby. I know it's common in a lot of other cultures too. However, we had twins and I was very, very strict on schedules. Like we needed to get them on the same schedule or else like obviously we would have lost our minds. So when we introduced the idea of, all right, the babies are only sleeping from like 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. for 2 hours, and then we wake them up, that was a really hard pill for both moms to swallow. I remember especially my mom, she's like, how could you? This is crazy. Like they're like newborns and you're just waking them up. I'm like, yeah, or else like the next 6 months of my life are going to be miserable and then yours will be miserable as well, right? And just echoing off of that, like, yes, the first couple months it was like rough trying to make both moms understand. But then I go to India once the babies are 1.5 years. And that was a whole nother layer with my grandma to make her understand, okay, like I'm switching time zones, right? Like I'm switching about 10 hours, a 10-hour difference. So I have to reset their schedule. So I have to wake them up. And my grandma is like my mom pretty much. So we used to get into like verbal fights over waking them up while I was in India because she's like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe you're just waking them up. They're so tired from travel. I'm like, no, dude, no. So it's definitely like that was definitely a struggle setting those boundaries with that layer of like South Asian mentality, never wake a sleeping baby.
That's a really great example. And I think it also just shows, right? You like feel this guilt. You know they're doing what they think is best, right? But it's
Right.
not aligned to what you want. And so that's why you need to still set these boundaries.
Yes.
And we can't be responsible for everyone else's like desires and emotions and feelings. Like we are the parent, right? So anyways, what a great segue into kind of sharing more about our situations. And then let's jump into a boundary fail and a boundary win and what we've learned through it all. So, Purvi, I'm going to kick it off to you first. Would love to learn more about postpartum. What did that life look like for you, and how does it look like for you now? And then jump into how you've been setting boundaries.
Yeah. So I've alluded to this quite a bit in the previous episodes that I live with my in-laws, but I never actually talked through the story of how I got there. I want to give a little bit of context. So back when I was like 6 weeks pregnant, so I didn't even go through my first ultrasound yet. So we thought we were having one baby. I tell my parents, and my dad's like, "Hey, you should move in with us. I think that'll be great." And I literally scoffed in that man's face. I was like, "Do you even know me? Like, I'm your daughter. Like, why would I ever need to live with the parents? That's ridiculous." Fast forward 2 weeks. We found out we're having twins. Well, Dhruv and I go off on our own separate ways after we find out we're having twins, and then we reconvene in the evening. Him and I both came to the same conclusion independently, and we decided that we need to move in with Dhruv's parents in Houston, in their home. Not move to Houston, but move to Houston in their home. And because we realized we were going to need a lot of help. And that was a tough pill for me to swallow because I really value my independence. This is like, I never envisioned this kind of life for me. And I knew at that point I was going to have to set a lot of boundaries, and that was uncomfortable for me. I'm not really good at, vocalizing my opinions, my thoughts, and having to manage a lot of other feelings, which is tough, right? Especially when you're postpartum. So that's kind of the setup. So, Karen, you mentioned a boundary fail and a win.
Yes, please share. Tell us, if you don't mind, share a fail first, and then based on that fail, like what did you learn? What would you have done differently?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll talk about a pregnancy one. So we moved to Houston when I was about 30 weeks pregnant. Okay. Dhruv pretty much started his job right away when we moved to Houston, and he was traveling a lot. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm very independent. I do everything on my own, even like the OB appointments. Most of them I did on my own, right? In Chicago. I come to Houston, and it's very common it's very common in South Asian culture that when you're really pregnant, parents don't really let you do much because they're scared. They want you to be safe, which is great. I totally get that. But that cramps my vibe. Okay. I get to Houston 2 days later. It's my first OB appointment. My mail was like, "I'm coming with you." And I'm like, "What? You're coming with me?" And she's like, "Yeah, you can't go by yourself. There's no way you can go by yourself. That's ridiculous." I'm like, "I think I'll be fine. I've been doing this by myself this whole time. Like for 30 weeks, I've been doing this by myself." And she's like, "Yeah, no." But I was like, "No, I think it's going to be a waste of your time." I'm like, "The appointment's like 3 hours long. It's going to be like a whole half day event. You don't have to come." And then at that point, like it was so early on in like my relationship with her. So like I didn't feel comfortable setting the boundary. So I was like, "All right, I'm just going to swallow this pill. I'm going to let you come, girl. I'm going to let you come with me." So she literally tagged along through all of my appointments, each and every one of them. And now looking back at it, it was like a great time with her. And I'm glad she got to experience like sitting through a twin ultrasound and all of that. But it was definitely a big learning experience. I was like shocked that like she's gonna come with me, like what? And like at that point I also like wasn't as tight with her. Like now I like can trust her, and like I feel like I have like a close relationship with her, but back then it was like still new to me, right? So I was like, "Oh my gosh, I kind of feel weird." Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Looking back at it, would you have done anything differently?
I think looking back at it, hindsight's always 2020. Looking back at it, like I wouldn't have given so much like hesitation to letting her come. Like it's like this is her first time experiencing something like this as well as a grandparent, and letting her just experience that, so, which I did, but like I wouldn't have given that much like pushback. I think it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about compromise. That's a big thing I've learned living with the in-laws. It's a compromise. It works. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, now I'm curious to hear a boundary win.
Yeah, a win. So I have like so many stories. Okay, so for my boundary win, I'm gonna go through actually a visitor story. I know that's a hot topic often. After having a baby, people have different expectations on visitors and rules around that. Okay, so Dhruv and I decided before we had the babies that we were not going to have any visitors for the first 3 months, primarily because they were premature. And again, COVID, all of that, we were like, all right, we're just not going to do it. So that was a boundary that was made pretty clear to both parents. We were open to having our siblings come and obviously grandparents, and that's where we drew the line. No family friends, no nothing like that. No cousins, none of that. Because you have to draw a line somewhere. And that was a big takeaway, was drawing a line on your boundary, right? A very clear line in the sand. So what happened was, I think one of Dhruv's cousins, I want to say, was in town visiting Houston for work. And his parents asked, hey, can he come over? He's a cousin. And we were like, remember, we said no siblings, or sorry, no one outside of siblings and grandparents, right? And we were like, we don't feel comfortable. He traveled through a plane. Like, I really don't feel comfortable with that. And I was like, I'm open to compromising. Like, he can see the babies from far away, but no holding. But like he has to stay away from the baby's area upstairs, and he can stay downstairs. Eventually he didn't end up coming because he himself didn't feel comfortable coming, which was good. But still, that was definitely a boundary win for sure. Like staying strong, like that was something really, really important to us. It was our baby's health that was in question. It was the first 3 months. They were super preemie. Yeah, so huge takeaway. So I think that the biggest thing is just drawing a strict line in the sand and aligning with your partner on it.
Yeah. Because you and your partner are a team. You have to always be aligned. Exactly. That's so good. I'm so glad. Like I feel like that saved your sanity in that way.
It did,
right?
but I will say it's like stressful saying no to that.
Oh God, yeah.
You feel so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm like hurting my in-laws' feelings, and like, oh, it's like their cousin, and I'm saying no. But like Dhruv also like had my back, so it was fine. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so now I went through my sagas, my boundaries. Okay, Karen, let's hear about your setup first.
Yeah. Okay. So on my end, I moved out to Seattle a few years ago for my job, which now that I'm laid off, what a silly decision. But at the time, we thought it was the best decision. We wanted to move out here for a career move for me. And also, Akash loves the outdoors, and so do I. And so we both really wanted to embrace this like outdoorsy, lifestyle here in Washington. And so we were totally fine. Everything was great, loving it when we moved out here. We don't really know anyone very well, except for one cousin and a few friends from grad school, who none of them have kids. So when we found out we were pregnant, I think I panicked and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're going to be doing this solo in Washington, so far away from our family. And close friends. And Akash immediately was like, oh, we can do this. We've always been so independent. Like, we can figure this out. No big deal. So I kind of just chugged along. And immediately, though, because when you live so far away, when I started getting closer to my due date, it dawned on me that everyone in my family, so my parents, my in-laws, my siblings, everyone, they did want to immediately visit. And they wanted to be here like when Layla was born. And for me, that was so overwhelming, right? I had no idea how to approach the subject of who do I want with me here when she's born and who do I want after? What I wanted and what Akash and I agreed on together as a unit was we wanted the first 7 days just us two alone with Layla, because these are precious moments. We wanted to learn on our own. We wanted to be thrown into it all on our own, and actually set up time with lactation consultants and folks that can come to our house and not feel pressured by any other outsider opinion, even if it's our moms, right? We love them, but like sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. So we made that decision together, and it was really hard to stand by, let me tell you.
It
I
is.
spent
Yeah.
like, because obviously my mom, my mother-in-law, they love us. They really care for us. They want to be here. It's their grandchild. It's our first, right? So I had to, really stay strong with this and explain to them we just really wanted the 7 days alone. And when they found out we had a doula, they were appalled, like a stranger helping you at night, a postpartum doula. What is that? How can you let a stranger hold your baby?
Yeah. And I feel like that's a big like South Asian mentality. I saw
Yes.
that quite a bit with my parents too. They were like, who's this random lady coming in here in the middle of the night?
I and
How
I
did
had
you
to
how did you like kind of ease their these opinions?
Well, I had to first explain my postpartum doula was also my birth doula. So I've gotten to know her for months now through the process of pregnancy, and she's really knowledgeable, and she's worked with, over 100 babies. And so this is not like her first rodeo at all whatsoever. And so she's really experienced and she's really nice. And eventually, like after a lot of skepticism, they realized how helpful she was for Akash to be sleeping and like helping me with pumping, etc. So they finally got over it, but it took time. Like in the beginning, they were so concerned, and before too, the baby was here, like they were just voicing their opinion on this constantly. I'll never forget that. But anyways, eventually though, to really set boundaries, I was very clear about it. And what I did was I created a legitimate schedule.
Yes, that's the most Karen thing ever.
Because I wanted to respect everyone's wishes, and I wanted to show, okay, everyone's staying for an equal amount of time. They can come like after 7 days. My mom and dad will come for a week, and then my in-laws can come, and there'll be like a few days of overlap between the two parents. I wanted to set some specific rules of, everyone's traveling here to Seattle. So
Right.
I
And
wanted,
you have a newborn.
and I have a newborn. So I said 48 hours, please like wear your masks around the baby. Please don't hold her. And then after, like, take a COVID test. And if you test negative, then fine. But like, I need you guys to abide by masks on, kind of keep a little bit of distance around her. And
That's smart. I wish I did that, honestly, with like my siblings and stuff.
I mean, they respected it.
Yeah.
I was very, very grateful. And but I think they understood because of COVID. I honestly think if COVID didn't happen, they would be like, what are we doing?
Very different world for sure.
So yeah, they got the whole mask thing. It was, and my parents are doctors. So that also set the standard. They completely understood. And I was so grateful. So grateful. Oh my God. But it all worked out. And in hindsight, looking back at it all, that first week was really, really hard. I don't think I would have changed anything. What I think would have been better is that I wish I had my families both here at the same time for a little bit of time, because admittedly, like, my mom's a little bit older and she's less familiar with newborns. So she like is not as knowledgeable with like putting babies to sleep and like feeding and burping, etc., and all that stuff. And so her role really was just like cooking for me, which was so helpful because I was like drowning, and so was Akash. We're all just so sleep deprived. And meanwhile, my mother-in-law is so familiar with young babies. And so she jumped right in and was like ready to hold her, soothe her, change diapers, whatever, no big deal. And so if they were here together, I think we could have actually set roles up for mom and mother-in-law, because let's be real, like the women are the ones really doing the work and helping.
For sure. Yeah, they're the hustlers.
Yeah, for sure. And I could have set roles up, and then we could have really been tag teaming really well. And maybe this is something we'll do with baby too. But in hindsight, like, loved having their support. Wonder how we could have done it better. But in overall, like, staggering also allowed us to have support for longer too.
Yeah,
So
that's huge.
no regrets. It all worked out. So grateful. I felt so loved. Everyone had their opinions though, but I had to just like swallow my pride and just push through.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, cool. So that sounds like it was a boundary win, quite successful, wouldn't do anything different. You're pretty happy with the outcome. So let's hear about a fail because that's juicy.
Juicy, juicy. Okay. So originally, after Layla was born, I had this rule: we shouldn't be traveling until she's 6 months old, gets a good amount of vaccines. Like the number one thing I was worried about was flu and COVID. And you can't get that until 6 months, right? So I was like, let her get that and then we can start traveling. But long story short, Akash's grandma was staying with his parents, and she's older. She's like 97, 98 years old. And actually, Layla's middle name is named after her. And so we really wanted her to meet her great grandmother. And so we were thinking, all right, let's maybe fly out to Ohio and have them meet. And Seattle to Ohio is a long flight, and I was really scared. And I, in terms of germs, with a 4-month-old, I mean, that's nuts. Like, it's just so much.
So stressful. I can't even imagine.
So stressful. And although, like, I thought, okay, we'll get there and it'll just be family, right? And so we can at least like hibernate and stay contained and just keep it just us, right? I knew Akash's grandmother was not doing that well. And so we also kind of were like, all right, we'll keep distance, but at least they can be together. They can meet, and hopefully germs won't spread, but we'll try our best, right? Like we really wanted them to meet. That was a really big goal. So we go out there, they meet. It was really cute. We have a lot of photos, and we celebrate Thanksgiving together. So it was just like a really special time. I was very scared because of like Thanksgiving germs and holidays.
Totally.
And just, like,
holiday germs are a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then over time, my in-laws wanted to plan an event or an evening more so with like cousins and other, extended family. And, I got really nervous. I felt really guilty saying no. And so I was like, well, as long as it's just cousins and family, right? Like I know them well, they'll understand because I know them that, I'm nervous about germs and travel and whatever. Lo and behold, because I said yes, and I think I was pretty lenient on that, the evening turned into friends and like aunties and uncles and like
as it does always.
South Asian situations.
As it does.
Something small. It's never small.
No.
And I was so paranoid the whole time. And so I decided, you know what? No one's going to hold her. And so my solution, because of my paranoia, was I'm just going to keep her on me with the Solly wrap. And so in every photo, if anyone wanted to take a photo with Layla, it was with me because she was like on my chest. And
I love that.
I couldn't create a verbal boundary, but I created a freaking physical boundary.
Yeah, you did. With the wrap.
Yep. And in a way, like I felt really safe because like the only germs she was getting was with me and we were together. I do think though, like people were questioning that and judging, and I kept saying, you know what? She's most comfortable on me and travels a lot. We had to do the Pacific to Eastern Standard Time change, and she's only 4 months. Like this is a lot. So I feel most comfortable with her here. And that's kind of what I kept saying. But in hindsight, I do wish both my husband and I were more clear and more firm on this.
I hear you. It's definitely hard. But you mentioned the guilt, right? The guilt is so real because you felt guilty not and letting everybody come and seeing all your friends and family while you're in Ohio. So like, you're going to have situations like that where sometimes the guilt will win and you'll give in to the boundary.
Yeah. I definitely did. I mean, we went all the way out there, right? And so after a while, it's like, if we're all the way out here, we might as well say yes. Right. And I think, again, like, I think we could have just kept it like cousins, right? Mm-hmm. Because ultimately I did get sick. Layla got sick. Like it sucked. That was the first time she got sick, right? So, but I learned, and now I'm going to be very firm about things like that moving forward.
Yeah. I hear you. You live and you learn. Layla's fine now. Yeah,
exactly. And I think overall, what I really learned, and I almost want to share with everyone here, is that when it comes to family or like grandparents, we have to align with our partners first because we need to present our united front. And I know you did that with Ruv, and
Yeah.
I should have done that with Akash. And I feel like we could have managed that better. And when we did do that with the scheduling for right after Layla was born, it was fine.
Yeah,
Everyone
great
understood.
outcome.
Mm-hmm. But we didn't do that over Thanksgiving. And I think that, kind of messed us up. And I think another big thing is for holidays or like big family gatherings. I think it's really important to express your desires and boundaries earlier on, so there's no sort of probing or questioning or asking last minute. And it's really important to frame it around the baby's needs, not my preference, right? Like, I
Yes,
think that's where I also
exactly.
went wrong too.
Yeah, it's always frame it around the baby. I always say like blame the babies, blame that's what I used to say postpartum. Like, oh, sorry, I can't come to this. It's the babies. They're here.
Yeah.
But like honestly, I sometimes fall back on that and it works. It's a good trick to settle
Yeah.
on. Another big one that I have is controlling. This is really like grandparent specific. Is
Yeah.
controlling the environment that you're in, and it's you can't always do that, right? You can't always control your environment, like your boundary fail. But oftentimes when you're at home and you have grandparents visiting, or in my case, they're living with you, I like to set them up for success as much as I can, right? So a good example I have is Drew's dad, my Phil, really wanted to be involved with the babies, but he often got bored just watching 3-month-olds like lay around, right? They don't do much; they just lay there. So then, when it would be his turn to like watch the babies, I would find him like on his phone, and the babies would be like off in one corner. So obviously, like I had not set him up for success. So what I found out was he really likes going on walks. So what we would do is after dinner time in the evening, we would send him with the babies on a walk. And that actually worked really nicely. He loved doing that. And it was a great way for him to get his energy out and spend time with the babies. So again, just set them up for success.
I think that's a really good example because we should really try to figure out what's best for our in-laws, right? Or our parents, and what's going to help us too. So the walks is a really good example. And the phone thing is a really good example too, because that is something that I also deal with. I notice my dad or my Phil always on their phone around Layla, which is fine. They're busy and they need to, address things. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that they want to spend this time, they acknowledge their love, but clarify the rules. So specifically saying like, if you're going to be around your phone, please do that elsewhere. If you're going to be with Layla, focus on her. Reading books is the thing that I always encourage them to do.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Because some, like my dad is perhaps like older and not as mobile. And so I'm always like, well, you really like to read, so let's just focus on that. And I think that really helps too. So like, I feel like walking, reading books are really good with the Phils and the dads of the world.
Yeah, for sure. And my dad really likes like rough house play.
Oh my God.
So like I always encourage him to participate during like their playtime, especially when they're like 6 to 8 months and where they're like rolling and mobile a little bit more. Like that's when I would like put my dad in, or I'm like, all right, it's your turn to like tag in now, and you can like roughhouse them a little bit. And it's just so where they find their joy, right? Like my Phil is walking, my dad is more like play.
That's so funny. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I do have one more.
Yeah.
So a big one that I've realized is after living with my in-laws is definitely picking your battles. And you ain't gonna win everything, and you don't need to win everything. Okay, put your ego aside. You'll be fine. Okay, your babies will be fine, and it's not all about you, right? That's a huge thing I had to really digest after living with them. A really specific example is when we were trying to get them to sit in their high chairs and do solids, and I had to create clear boundaries of, all right, food only in the high chair, because I didn't want to do a 2-hour dinner of running around after them, which I do now. But what would happen is oftentimes like the babies would get out of the high chair and then I would see my Mill giving them food, which is fine. She loves to feed them. It's great. But then I'm like, all right, now they're just going to pick up all these bad habits. But again, I'm like, whatever, I'm gonna just let her do this because she loves this. So we're gonna run with it, and you got to pick your battles.
You really have to. Yeah. And And I think like on my end, the big thing is because I'm so far away, my mom and my Mill always want to FaceTime. They always
Oh,
want to
that's a good
FaceTime,
one.
like
Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah.
And I'm so anti screens, but the compromise here is that if it's FaceTime and if it's immediate family, Akash and I decided it's fine. And
Yeah.
we always try to do it where it's like Layla's done eating and she needs to have a little like low key time before she's going to go wild and play. And so it's that like down time, the like more peaceful time where we're sitting together and we'll just put the FaceTime there in the playpen and kind of keep it watching, like observing. And she'll look once in a while and kind of react because there'll be talking. But we try not to do it when we're like doing critical things like feeding, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. That's great. I think that's a great like boundary compromise you've come up with your
Yeah,
moms.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think as she gets older, though, we're going to have to figure out a new thing because now she's really fascinated with the phone because FaceTime's on the phone. And so something my brother told me was with his kids, they eventually moved to only using iPad for FaceTime. And so now the iPad is like where the people are, like grandparents and like me, and phone is separate. Like
Oh, that's a good idea.
So I need to, eventually, very soon do that because I think she's starting to equate phone to FaceTime.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. I love that.
Yeah. All right. We've been talking for a while now, so I think it's time to wrap this baby up here. But before we go, it's time for
Permission.
to
Glow.
glow. I'm happy to go first.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so something that Akash and I have been doing when he's around and not traveling for work, in the last few weeks, actually, we're here at Borby. The sun has been coming and going. We're starting to get glimmers of the beautiful sunshine,
Yeah.
which is very strange for Seattle.
I
But
brought the
anytime there's,
sun.
I know you really did. But anytime now that there's sun, Akash and I make it a tradition. Make it a tradition. It's happened like 3 or 4 times, but we're trying really hard to make this a new tradition. Now that when it's sunny, we take a walk to the park and we take Layla to go on the swings, and it's been so much fun. So she tried the swings for the first time like 3 weeks ago, and now we're making it a regular habit where we go to the swings, we like walk there, we bring a picnic blanket, we do dinner with her out on the picnic blanket. And she's having her food while Akash and I are having like a charcuterie board. It
That's
is
so cute.
just so nice, and I'm loving the ritual of it. And I think we're just trying to like be outdoors with her more, and
Yeah.
she's just really enjoying it. And so it's just so much fun to see her thriving outdoors and like trying new things. And she's just so curious too. I'm seeing her point at the sky and like plants, and it's just, this is such a fun age now, and I'm just really leaning in to enjoy it,
I love that. You're really trying to see the world through her eyes. And it's cool to watch that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm noticing more and more that specifically as we do new things, it's like these little moments of her curiosity that make me so happy, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is she pointing at? Like, why is she staring at something? Like, really bringing that mindset into my brain, and letting myself live that with her has been just bringing me so much joy.
So cool to see. I think that's one of my favorite parts of parenthood, I must say.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
now your turn.
Okay, so this one's not directly related to me, but I want to give a huge shout out to Dhruv. While I was in Seattle, we were doing a lot of podcast stuff, and we were very busy, Karen and I, making content for you guys. However, someone had to watch the babies, and that was Dhruv. And I am just so impressed as to how he was able to manage them through the whole day. Like, he would take them out independently. Like, I'm really good at that. I'm confident in my skills to take them out by myself, but I know he hasn't had that much time to perfect it. And in Seattle, he really embraced it. He was like, all right, even though they're really feral, you saw some low points there, Karen. They're just screaming. But he managed it. He took them out. They did their own thing while we were doing our podcast stuff, and it was great. And I really appreciate like him giving me space to do it.
I will also add one other thing, which is like kudos to both Borvi and Dhruv. Like, this is my permission to go for them. I saw how chill they were, right? Like, I think something I've always said to Borvi is I'm so scared to have a second because like Layla will be a toddler and then we'll have a newborn, and I can't imagine like that toddler craziness, like the desire.
I can't imagine I'm going to be very interested to see how you do it because I'm just shocked when I see that in the wild.
I mean, but to see you do it with two toddlers, I was overwhelmed in many occasions watching it. But every single time without fail, they were just both cool as cucumbers. They're just like, whatever. Hey, just make sure you don't go on the street. Like, that's not allowed. Setting boundaries.
Setting boundary. Don't run into a car or don't choke on something. That's pretty much the boundary.
But like jump on the cushions at the restaurant, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
And I just was like, dude, how this is like, I'm just so impressed. So another permission to glow there for both of you guys. I mean, like, kudos to how chill and calm and collected you guys can be to combat toddler craziness. Holy cow.
Thank you.
Holy cow.
You'll be chill.
Patience to another level.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be chill. I think that's cute. You think that, but okay.
All right.
All right.
Let's wrap up this episode.
Yep. Okay. So a few things I want to call out before we end. I think the major thing here, as we talked about boundaries, reminder, you are the parent. So it's okay to prioritize your baby's needs over others' feelings. And accepting that some people will feel hurt is key. And like, they're going to feel hurt, but that's okay, right? Because boundaries are not walls. They're just bridges to healthier and stronger relationships, especially with grandparents who are so dedicated to showing your love and affection, right? You want to have that there and you want to offer that, but there has to be compromises and there has to be boundaries.
All right. Well, on that note, next week, we're going to be talking about passing down our culture to our babies and what that looks like as first generation South Asian moms. You know, it's the first time we're doing this, so stay tuned.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming to the hardest job ever.
Please share this episode with a mom who is in the trenches of early postpartum and maybe needing some boundaries ASAP. We hope that this helps. But until then, we'll see ya.